beyond. I am Alfred Okanse, if you've just joined us. But this week, the Speaker of Parliament was very convinced that he has been vindicated with his position that this Special Prosecutor's Office creation was an act in futility. Well, this is what the Speaker said in justifying this vindication that he feels. Take a look.
Office of the Special Prosecutor, I did tell you that it was an act in futility. You were not going to achieve anything from that, but you went ahead to pass it. I disagreed with you, but I was alone. Well, I'm very clear in my mind that that authority is embedded in the powers of the Attorney General, constitutionally. Who delegated to who? No, but that is not what you put in the act. What you just need to do is to fund the office of the Attorney General well and remove the Minister of Justice. You separate the two. Minister of Justice is a political appointee. The Attorney General is a technical person, and he only is ranked in conditions of service to that of a Minister of State. It doesn't mean they have to be incorporated to. Oh, I'm talking about the Constitution. No. I have my Constitution with me here. We are not Supreme Court, so we don't have that power. Yes, it's there, 881. I have no problem. I have no problem with Attorney General being a minister. I'm only saying you separate that from the Minister of Justice. Yes. Honorable members, so to have put the question on the...
So that's the Speaker of Parliament there, feeling that sense of vindication in all of this. There are some lawyers who have argued that there's some level of understanding to what the Speaker's position is because of a constitutional maybe error or mistake, for that matter, for the lack of better expression. We'll get into it. He makes a proposal that he would have wanted rather an independent Attorney General and then a Minister of Justice who is appointed, or a political person for that matter. We'll get into that proposal as well shortly. But if you take into consideration the Special Prosecutor's own frustrations and all of these songs of Ankwanoma that he's been talking and singing about all the while, it sort of gives credence to the feelings that the Speaker has about his work and the fact that all of these frustrations that he's facing could have been just as a result of the lack of clarity in the creation of his office. This is the Special Prosecutor a couple of weeks ago at the press conference.
Wait, let us bring before you the body of our investigation as evidence. And if you look at it and you decide that the evidence does not show up to the standard of proof required in criminal cases, then you can dismiss it. But don't prevent us from doing our work, from investigating. It is dangerous. As I said, I wasn't sounding as a prophet of doom, but there is doom looming ahead of us. That very soon, a murderer will boldly walk to court to seek an injunction. Should I feel frustrated and resign? I took an oath when I was sworn in. And in my life, when I take on the reins to do something, I do it to the best of my ability. Those who do not understand tree, please forgive me. They say I'm a Ankwanoma. mede me kra abo afore me ye de metumi emre so a ekọ.
So all of these Anquanoma things is what also some others feel like he's only just giving credence to what the speaker has been talking about. But after all of this, the special prosecutor started giving his scorecard. His office has been sending out, leaflets and flyers and statements detailing what he has been doing over the period as special prosecutor. Reason why the creation of the office is indeed important and impactful, contrary to what the speaker has been saying. My guests are seated. I'll run through just a brief of the scorecard of the special prosecutor as his office has been putting out this week. We'll have a brief conversation on this. Andy Apiakubi is member of parliament. He's a private legal practitioner as well. He's a member of a number of committees in parliament, one of which has been very busy this session. And they took the decision not to even hear this LI seeking to ban some 22 items. Asante Achim North Member of Parliament.
The man is going for re-election.
Indeed. We'll talk about that briefly. But Andy Apiakubi is
here.
here.
Will not remind you of this.
Lawyer Andy Apiakubi, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, my brother.
Okay. Also with us is another private legal practitioner. He's not a member of parliament. He's the convener of the Kpebu reloaded demonstration. He's leader of one of the individual bondholder groups. Does that group still exist? Does it not?
Yeah.
What's the latest with the payment of your?
Well, right now payments are ongoing smoothly.
So you are getting small.
But if for real time messages up again, then we'll be up in arms.
So right now the coupons are
they
coming.
are enjoying. We know those fine because they become rich as a result of these bonds. Our aim is just to make sure that we should also be paid. They can't get very rich now, and then we should be impoverished. No.
So that group is still on.
Yeah, it's still on.
Thank you very much,
Martin. Aluta continua.
Aluta continua. Martin Kpebu is with us. Lawyer Martin Kpebu, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Always. And Clement Apak. Dr. Clement Apak is a former lecturer of mine and also the member of parliament for the Busa South constituency and also the deputy ranking on the Education Committee of Parliament. Dr. Clement Apak, good morning. Welcome.
Alfred, good morning. But have you mentioned Busa South?
Yeah, I did.
I thought he was not going to.
I did. Yes, I did.
Member of Parliament for Busa
Yes,
South.
I did.
We are getting into the season, so
it's important.
It is required. You can forget all my other credentials, but
the Busa South must be emphasized.
And associate it with Busa South.
Including
Busa South.
My very bad friend.
Andy, just
Okay.
On a lighter note.
Yes.
Many don't know, but Andy and myself are mates.
I see.
We're in Legon around the same time.
Yes.
And in Commonwealth, and he was in
Kpebu. Peaceful Kpebu.
I see.
We almost impeached him, but he survived.
He started the impeachment process the very first day I was elected as SRC president.
That's when he started the impeachment process.
The same day.
It's crazy.
You've never known peace for quite a while now. Thank you so
We're
much.
a lot more vibrant.
Indeed. A number of you politicians are colleagues
Yes.
at the various institutions, and you end up in politics on both sides. But
Yes.
also joining us shortly will be Bobby Bansing, his private legal practitioner as well. But gentlemen, it's good to have you. This is what the special prosecutor put out, the scorecard. Let's just run through it briefly. These are the prosecutions. He says the Republic versus Ejenim Boateng. This is the trial of the former chief executive of the Public Procurement Authority, and his brother-in-law is ongoing before the criminal division of the High Court, Accra. As you know, Ejenim Eje has been charged on multiple counts of using public office for profit and directly and indirectly influencing. That's some influence peddling there. The next one is the Republic versus Alexander Kwabena, Suffolk and Tanka. Now, prosecution has also closed its case in the trial of this MCE nominee for jobbing in the Ashanti region for corruption in respect of a public election. Remember this MCE nominee going to collect his money that he gave to the delegates or the people. Anyway, let's go to the next one. There's Republic versus Cecilia Abnadapa, and the refusal to declare property and income as demanded by the OSP. And the plea of the accused yet to be taken, the docket yet to be assigned to the new judge, and the case has been adjourned to December 22. So that's something you should bear in mind. Getting into this week, this is one of the cases that the court will hear. Charles Edubuahin, you are Martin Kpebu, your favorite. Charles Edubuahin. So after an exhaustive inquiry prompted by the president's referral regarding the former deputy finance minister's conduct in an investigative documentary by Tiger IPI titled Galamsey Economy, the OSP concluded that Mr. Edubuahin engaged in misconduct as a public officer and his actions constituted trading in influence. That's where it ended. You remember a couple of weeks ago there was this contention with you and Samid Akon whether or not this was what was in the report. Well, the OSP's own report indicates that he said it was trading in influence, influence peddling. But he stopped there, indicating that, yes, there is no specific law that...
no, he's there, Jantua. Repal versus Jantua.
So I'll start off with you on this. Let's start off. Let's. So this is the speaker's position on the special prosecutor, that this office was an act in futility. Babi Bansen, good morning. Welcome. Okay.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great. Good to have you.
Good morning to Senior.
Fantastic.
Morning, Bobby. Hi.
Great.
Yes,
Great.
good
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You
Thank
good?
Yes, I'm good, Senior.
Right. Let's start off with you, Lawyer Martin Kpebu,
Yes.
on this OSP creation of the office and the speaker's verdict, plus your own concerns you've had with the OSP over the period. Quickly.
Yes. Okay, so the speaker, let's start. Mr. Speaker, well, you know, I always say that I like the whole idea that Mr. Speaker is from the NDC stock. At least it gives our democracy some vibrancy and some resilience. The fact that he got elected, even though he's from the NDC, that's good. And since coming into office, he's done quite a number of things that are good. There are others who will criticize him for. It's normal. Nobody will get it 100%, okay? It's cool. Now, on this conversation too that he started, I see two main things in it. His accent, substantively, the good point he makes is that he wants the office of the Attorney General, he wants the Attorney General to be decoupled, okay? From the Ministry of Justice. That one has been an old constitutional debate. You see, that's why I brought my Constitutional Review Commission reports and all those things here. In England, just to summarize, they have an Attorney General separate from there's a Minister for Justice. So that one I support. But the only side that I don't support is when he said the OSP Act is an exercise in futility. At least, Mr. Kansi, even what you've recounted this morning shows that this is not futility. It's a work in progress. Naturally, you know, corruption is a difficult thing to fight. Corruption, you know, people who undertake corruption come into a lot of funds, and so they can fight and fight really well. If you are not even careful, they will defeat you. They would. So the fight is difficult. And so when you have a difficult fight, we shouldn't equate that to futility.
Okay.
From what you've recounted, you see that the OSP has done something. Of course, I have my challenges.
Could all of these have been done without the OSP's office?
I'm not sure. I'll say I'm not sure because, you see, before the OSP office was created, and if you Google, over decades, we've had these conversations from the 90s. From the 90s, that we started saying it appears an Attorney General is not the best candidate to prosecute his colleagues in cabinet. That is us. We are Africans, right? We are Ghanaians. We are communal in nature. So there are some cultural bases for people saying, no, I don't want to sit in cabinet with you and then the next day prosecute you in court. So it's a conversation we had for more than a decade. More than a decade. So I remember the IEA started championing the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, I think from about 96 or so. So it's not even from the year 2000. These debates have been on for about 96. So it tells you that just at about the second term or in the Fourth Republic, other people contributed. So when you Google, you see that this is a debate we've had for over a decade before finally we created that office. And let's not underrate the importance of public opinion in our discourse. You see, governance is something that we usually take feedback. The presidents and the people in the executive office, they take feedback from the people. So this is a conversation that spanned over 10 years. Especially, and let's not even forget too that this OSP is not the first time. So we're just going back. We had a special prosecutor, public, prosecutor like that. The last person was Lawyer Pia. I think this man too, Bright Akwete also worked in that office, right? But Lawyer Pia was the public prosecutor. Eventually, he also got ensnared in corruption.
Dr. Akwete of IDEG.
No, Bright
Akwete, that's CDD.
The lawyer,
CDD.
the public, yeah,
Yes.
No. Bright Akwete was a CPP, ran for president. Yes. Before then, he worked for the Attorney General.
Yes.
And before then, he was in the Attorney General's office. Then he was sent to Gambia, came back. Yeah. So he used to work in the office of the special prosecutor. And there was a law. So you see that what we are saying, the pith of this thing is that Mr. Speaker can't wish away, just obliterate the conversations we had for over a decade. Where was he? So he was in the minority, and democracy sometimes, that is the rule of the majority. But of course, we like to take into consideration very incisive and constructive dissent, right? But I'm saying that debate went on for long, and it appears there was a consensus that give it to an independent person. If he's saying that, look, you just go to Kenya. I was in Kenya some time ago, 2007, and then later 2018. They have a DPP. The Kenyan DPP is independent. You see
That's the Director of Public Prosecution.
You see the block they are now building for the Attorney General next to the, the court complex. The DPP has such a block in Kenya. The DPP is not a joke. In their constitution, insulated and everything. Ghana, our DPP is under the armpit of the AG. So the point I'm making is that if you're saying that, there's no need to create OSP, then long ago we should have had the DPP being very independent. Our constitution doesn't deal with the DPP like the way the Kenyan constitution, you open the Kenyan constitution, you see how the DPP is separate and independent. And I have seen it fiscal, even the office alone. What we are now trying to build for the AG, the Kenyans had the decades.
For the Director of Public
Yes,
Prosecution?
you go to the building, you see, building. That's
so in your view, if the Director of Public Prosecution in Ghana was separate, independent, and functional, aside of the AG, then there will be no need for the Special Prosecutor's office.
Absolutely. But we haven't been able to do that. Politicians have always controlled the DPP.
Okay.
Politicians, small boys will come and control the DPP. That's always been it. The DPP has no voice. It's what the politician says that goes. Sometimes you even have the DPP being several years ahead of the Attorney General, like we currently have. But currently, the Attorney General is the boss. Mrs. Obu-Bisa is years ahead of the Attorney General at the bar, far senior to the Attorney General. But Attorney General is boss. Attorney General has the last word. So we haven't done that enough. And I'm saying that, so we have always had a history of a public prosecutor. We are not saying we want to be like the Kenyans, though maybe it would have helped. But we had Lawyer Pia as a public prosecutor before then. He did work. He fought corruption. And then, of course, eventually corruption also defeated him, right? But we are trying again. And just like, Mr. Ejabin, please, let's also put in this as we go. People are beginning to raise corruption against Mr. Ejabin too. Martin Amidu, in his last episode, has started raising issues of corruption against Mr. Ejabin. Please, let's watch it. Let's watch it. Mr. Ejabin, we will not allow you. He says your friend. There's a writer. So that man he mentioned, it's a full writer.
You've been
he says that person goes to collect money. He's your distant friend or relation. Okay. He says he's in the breed. They equip him in there, and then he serves as the go between. He seeks to take money to quash or make some of the cases foolish cases and the rest. Look, such an allegation coming from Mr. Amidu deserves the greatest attention. Amidu doesn't make such allegations lightly, please. Amidu doesn't make allegations of corruption against somebody lightly. So for him to have put that on paper, please, let's watch this. So maybe it's about time we also set some who watches the watchman, somebody to throw such light on corruption in the OSP office, please. And me, myself, I won't even hide it. I've said it before. The way the Dubois case goes, I mean, or the way it went, gives me suspicions. You see, I've always said it from day one. I'm like, why? Is it because Bawumia is part of the Dubois case? Is it because, you know, look at the way how the report came just about a week to the MPP primaries, the presidential primaries. Because Dubois said he was taking the shake to Bawumia. You exonerated Bawumia just about a week to the primaries. Was it to increase his fortunes in that election so that Kennedy Japan would be done? Was it to increase Bawumia's fortunes in that MPP primary? Everybody was clear. He knew why he was going to Bawumia. He knew why he was going to Bawumia. So why do you exonerate Dubois a week to the MPP primaries? It's a question you will answer forever. Look, until we go into this case and have it prosecuted, no, we will not leave it. We are all Ghanaians. Because me, I support you, but I also know that you are human. There will be issues. So that's the good thing.
Okay.
We support you, but we also know that you are human. So just know that as we support you, we will also criticize you. That way the work will go on well. We can't just come sit here and do praise singing. So this is a Dubois matter. As I have said, we are doing research, more research. Look, Jantua was prosecuted under Section 252, influence peddling.
Okay.
There were other cases that were prosecuted under Section 252, influence peddling. That has to do with, you hear the Olenu Commission report, the current law that wants to reintroduce the import
Restrictions Act.
Yeah, and then the permits. Yeah, so what the KT Amon wants to reintroduce permits to be able to import, blah, blah, blah. We had that in the 60s, and there was influence peddling. So to get the permit, you had to go see people who go influence. So that's what Jantua was prosecuted under. Right? And other cases. So when you come and say somebody takes money and says, I'm going to see another person to influence the person, then you say there is no law in Ghana on influence peddling.
So this is a case you want to be revisited?
Yes, yeah, oh, absolutely. Mr. Jabin, in that case, they don't play with it, please. Don't play with it. You made a mistake, just come back, let's correct it, and then you prosecute Dubois and also the GRA boss. Look, GRA boss, in the case of this in October 20, just about 2 months ago, 2023, the Supreme Court held that GRA boss, you are the one to take administrative or issue administrative sanctions, take penalties against people who come into Ghana with more than $10,000. So it's a case I did. It's called Republic versus Daniel Gibson Azubuike. Okay. So they said you deal with that case administratively. So to the extent that Dubois came with $40,000, it's not late. That $40,000, he must pay penalties on it whilst OSP takes action to ask him to return that money so that and then the prosecution of that case will go on. So that Dubois will come and show how Bawumia features in his plan. You think we are going to sit here? Look, even if he's deaf, we'll face it. That's how our democracy is built to. If Kwame Nkrumah was scared, you think we would get here?
Well, Kpebu, thank you. Let me bring in lawyer Andy Apiakubi as well on this, because the speaker, beyond his sense of vindication, also makes a proposal that the powers given the special prosecutor should have been left with a non-partisan attorney general while creating a separate minister for justice who will be a politician. In other words, who will be appointed, by the president. And that is something that, in his view, would have also worked in the stead of the OSP as an office.
Albert, in the spirit of Chinua Achebe, let me congratulate myself for the patience I've had this morning. Because in spite of the unnecessary provocation in the reference to Dr. Bawumia, I have remained very quiet. And I think that as lawyers, we know that mere 1 million allegations does not constitute evidence. So the fact that somebody mentions somebody's name in a discourse doesn't provoke an invitation of anybody to prosecute anything. It may be wrong, it may be false, whatever he may have said. So we don't have to over-rely on that, except that when it is proven in the court of law, then we can, advert our minds to that. But somebody who is being interrogated saying that, oh, I was going to send so-and-so person to Kpebu, then Kpebu becomes a subject of investigation. And but let us not push it to that level. I think the consolidation of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice in one office is a constitutional default. And we need to treat the constitutional default and find a constitutional remedy through a constitutional process.
Okay.
It is not enough for any of us to sit anywhere and say that because I find it incongruent to put the two offices together in one office, it is not feasible, and for which reason we cannot create any other office. And I think it's simplistic to say the least. Having identified that, we don't also have to forget that that is our constitution. Indeed. And that is our greatest law. We have to be careful respecting the constitution, because the constitution as a whole becomes the embodiment of our jurisprudence in Ghana. And we cannot just tear parts and away in our effort to please our expectations. Indeed, we have a path to take if we want to clean our constitution. So let's resort to that if we want to do that. But as Martin has said, if you look at our criminal jurisprudence over the years, there has always been one attempt or the other to decouple the two offices. Because come to think of it, Minister of Justice is a special office that requires that you consciously attempt to manage the rights of people in the country. Means make sure that there are no breaches in the enjoyment of rights, there are no threats and all that. So, and again, the Attorney General's office, as per the expectations of the Constitution, is also to prosecute. The same person who, by your one office, expects you to defend the citizens in matters of human rights, the same person, you are supposed to also prosecute the same citizens when there is a breach of any part of the law. So it is difficult. But as Martin gave the chronology of the historical antecedents, we ourselves as people of Ghana, we have always realized that our consolidation is not right. But let's find a way to do the constitutional remedy in good time and within the good process. The creation of the Director of Public Prosecution, the DPP, is also an attempt to find a prosecutor who will not be influenced by politics or by his appointment. But unfortunately, over the years, except one person, Jekedi,
yeah, he was strong.
He was strong. He could resist political influence, and he would do it as it was.
And then
Misa. If I take these two persons in that office, they behave very well, and Jekedi, you will love him in prosecution. But since he left to join his ancestors, we haven't had a Jekedi in that office again. Mrs. Obuabisa, that's the name.
Yeah, Obuabisa.
She is good. As a lawyer, as a prosecutor, she is very good. But to the extent that I cannot also think that she cannot also submit to maybe political directions. That one I cannot budge. But for her competence, I have no doubt whatsoever. She is good. And if she could be, but again, it depends on you. Our politicians will try, but you resist any political influence, and that makes you a Jekedi. So let us try and let us fail. So the onus is on her as the public prosecutor to ensure that people see you as a person who cannot be compromised, and therefore will not even make an attempt at all. But if you allow Kpebu to come and sit before you and throw some jabs at you and try to influence you, probably by way of my position in government, then it is your fault. It's your own doing. Nawara. So once we had a JKD who said no to interference, we can always have somebody in that possible position. And again, my good friend, OSP, the frustration he is sharing is unwelcome. I don't want to buy it.
The Ankwanoma and all
No.
It's unwelcome.
It's unwelcome. I won't buy it.
Why?
Because, I have given you the story of JKD. And indeed, there has been this attempt to create a particular office, a special office. And the office is designated to investigate and prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses. You see, so it's a specialized office. Not to mingle with the Office of Attorney General that prosecutes all crimes. And indeed, upon the creation of the OSP's office, I would have thought that the Attorney General will relinquish every prosecution in respect of corruption and corruption related to that office, so that that is an attempt to create an independent office. So if after all the effort we put in to create that office, you only come and say, I'm man, that kind of thing, I'm very disappointed. And I won't buy that.
Well, but that's his reality. That's what's happening in the office.
I mean, he must sit and make sure that that office becomes independent. And the independence of the office depends on him, not on anybody. Like I was saying, if you allow me to come and sit before you and throw my weight about before you, and that will influence you, then it means, and I have pointed to JKD and this one, they resisted, even during the military regimes. JKD will say no. And they said, I expect that kind of person in that office. You see, so if you cannot exert your influence in that office and ward off any attempts at undermining or influencing you, and you come out to cry that you are being intimidated or you are being influenced, you have allowed yourself to be influenced. As far as I'm concerned, there is no cry. So for me, I won't take that invitation to sympathize with him. He has to make sure that he enjoys his independence and he protects his independence, and he makes sure that people are afraid even to come to him, so that he will continue to manage his independence. But just to cry because people are influencing you, because you have opened the gate for people to come, and when they come, you are crying. And as long as the gate continues to be open, they will come. I'm sorry that me, beyond the appointment into public office. If I was, and
they've sidelined you because you led the crusade against Akufo-Addo.
We are not going there today.
But well done. God bless you.
If it happens
You'll never recover from it.
I was the OSP, I'm not sure that even people will attempt to come to me because they see me as probably a non-compliant person. So they wouldn't even attempt to come to me.
They see you as a non-compliant person.
Because I do
non-conformist.
I think it's right. If I make a legitimate mistake, it will be a mistake. Okay. But for me to succumb to pressures and intimidation, I don't know intimidation. I don't understand it. So if you attempt to intimidate me, you get it wrong. You rather charge me to attempt to attack you if you intimidate me. That's my nature. So, and I'm sure a lot of my friends know this. So if I was appointed as an OSP, I'm sure Martin will not come to me and attempt to say, Andy, this is my friend and that kind of thing.
No, people say it's easier said than done. You espouse all of these principles, you get in there and then you come face to face with the reality of this.
For him to have led the 98 MPs against Akufo-Addo. When was the last time you could gather citizens, MPs like that? That thing, it was a what do you call it? A groundbreaking constitutional move. That parliamentarians, you could influence 98 of your colleagues to stand up against a certain president. Akufo-Addo will never recover from it. It was such a big indictment that Ofori-Atta should go. Ofori-Atta must go. Ofori-Atta must go. Congrats.
Martin, listen to me. I'm sure you were in the Supreme Court just a few days ago when I had a chance to argue before the 13th. Indeed, I had brought application for the court to strike out what I call an unwholesome law. And, some debate ensued in the Supreme Court. I enjoyed the debate, albeit that at the end of the day, maybe other people thought that I was too hard, but At the end of the day also, I realized that there was good counsel from the court to the lawyers that let's listen to me. After all, if somebody comes to join, then it means that he or she is privy to the orders of the court, and therefore we should not find difficulty in serving the orders. I mean, that is the advantage in the joinder. So for me, I took it in good faith that the court was rather giving me an opportunity to facilitate my service of my processes. And in any case, Mr. OSP, you have a beautiful opportunity. If you thought that people could influence you, if you thought that politics could undermine your work, now all of us are behind you, and you are saying that continue to do your work to the best of your ability.
Right.
And posterity will always not forget you.
Okay. Well, let me bring in Dr. Clement Tapak on this one as well. Well, the lawyer, Landiapia Kpebu, doesn't sympathize with the OSP's frustrations and lamentations. But then again, it is on the basis of all of these happenings in the last few weeks that the speaker feels vindicated and all of that. You know, get the understanding that the OSP himself has lent himself to all of these statements by the speaker and others who think like him, that really, if his latest public outburst or outcry is anything to go by, then the office in itself, the creation hasn't had so much of an impact.
Well, Alfred, let me say good morning to you and my co-panelists. My voice is a bit hoarse, but I'll do my best.
Great.
Let me say good morning to the people of Butcher South. You know, my nickname is MPTV3.
MPTV3.
Yeah, because I've been associated with your network for who knows when, ever since I returned from my surgeons abroad. I've always been associated with TV3.
Indeed.
So, let's begin with the speaker's comments and why I perceive the motivation for his comment. You must remember that the speaker, at the time that we were looking at establishing the office of the special prosecutor, like many other Ghanaians, in fact myself included, and including our party, was in principle opposed to the establishment of the office of the special prosecutor. We were not opposed to it because we were against establishing an office, quote unquote, independent enough to fight the canker of corruption. But our concern was how a law that was going to create such an office was still giving room for subordination.
What do you mean?
I say so because if you look at the law as it is, and that was one of the sticking points, if you remember the debate, was that we claim we're going to create the office of the special prosecutor and put somebody there who would deal with issues of corruption, particularly with regards to those who are politically exposed. But at the same time, we then say that the person must seek the authority or clearance. Ultimate decisions would have to be taken with the approval.
Doc, maybe give me 1 sec. It is because Constitution requires that Attorney General is the prosecutor.
Yes.
And it's a constitutional position. So
Andy,
you couldn't change unless you change the Constitution.
I'm not arguing. So that was the issue. And you see, to many, that component of it still makes the special prosecutor not truly independent. Because at the end of the day, well, he may do his work, you know, have his findings, may be able to make them public or not make them public. But there is an entity above him that can say, yes, go with this, or don't go with this. In that case, what do you do? I see that has been the issue, and I think that is where the speaker comes in to make the comment that he makes, and then speaks to the debate and the long-term argument that we ought to look at separating or decoupling the Attorney General from the Minister for Justice. So you see that the speaker did not just make his comment in isolation. There was a link. And I think we ought to understand the speaker within that context. And quite frankly, you see, some of us were of the opinion that the motivation behind the then MPP opposition, the mantra to establish the office of the special prosecutor, and the way they spoke was as though the office was coming to deal with their political opponents. The special prosecutor was solely being trumpeted, and the argument to bring such an institution into place was to target what was then perceived as grand-scale corruption perpetrated by the SYL NDC-led John Mahama government. And that has not happened. In fact, interestingly, if you look at the commentaries that we have heard from my uncle Martin Hamidou, the first special prosecutor, how he was even brought in, the commentaries around what he was expected to do. And what we are now hearing from Mr. Kisia Jabe, a.k.a. Ankwanuma, you know, who essentially is feeling powerless. He feels powerless. He feels left alone. He is feeling that he is not being given the needed support to deliver. You see how even people associated and aligned with the NPP are speaking, even about Kisiaj. I mean, they did that with Martin Hamidou. At least we can grant them that. Some of them were of the opinion that my uncle Martin shouldn't have even appointed in the first place. They had all kinds of issues, and it was done. We all had expectations. They had their expectations. We had our expectations. But they fell out of love with Martin Hamidou because what they wanted him to do and how they wanted him to do it was not what they were getting.
Was that really the case?
Well, of course, you can read some of the epistles of Martin Hamidou. I mean, my uncle is not somebody who is very secretive. I mean, he is written to extent that he's even, you know, named the president the mother serpent of corruption, which has come to stay. And then you see that Kisia Jabin is going through the same. Although Martin Hamidou has differences with Kisia Jabin in terms of the approach, the public discourse around the office of the special prosecutor, and for lack of a better word, the bashing of the special prosecutor, the current special prosecutor, if you read what is going on in the media landscape, is coming a lot more from MPP stock and affiliates. And you ask yourself, why? Why? Because for some reason, they feel that he ought to be going after their political opponents. Some are not comfortable that he's taking up issues to do with Cecilia Dapa and matters to do with the Dubois and investigations about current and present government appointees and persons affiliated with the ruling party. And so they are saying if he can't do the job, he should resign. So this is a very nuanced issue. It has become a lot more like the proverbial elephant. You can hold the tail and describe it. You can hold the trunk and describe it. You can hold the foot and describe it. But the key and important matter is this. Is the special prosecutor being allowed the needed room to function and do his best as far as the law establishing his office is concerned? That is where we should be focused on the argument. Because whether we like it or not, the office has been created. We have an officer who is being paid by the taxpayer to help us fight graft, fight corruption, and retrieve public resources that have been illegally appropriated or acquired by people who ought to be serving the national interest and who have no business trying to enrich themselves at the expense of the taxpayer.
True.
So for me, I see the speaker's comment within the context of the broader narrative, going back to the very beginnings of the debate towards establishing the office, vis-a-vis whether it wouldn't be better for us to decouple the position of the Minister for Justice from the Attorney General. So in that sense, I don't think that the speaker has been harsh, or I don't see his commentary as not being tasteful.
I see. But then there's this position that you've had a number of the lawyers here raise about what the constitutional provision or position is. But at this point, let me bring in Lawyer Bobby Vanson briefly, and I'll come to you, Dr. Clement Park again. Lawyer Bobby Vanson, at least for this statement comes on the back of what the special prosecutor has been saying himself. After the speaker's verdict on the office, he has been putting out his scorecard. Some of the cases he's been up to, in fact, the likes of Professor Jampo believe that he shouldn't be touching too many things at the same time, touch and go, touch and go. But then again, you get the sense that there are people who agree with the speaker's position because of the special prosecutor's own public outburst or outcry about what is happening in his office and what has been going on. In fact, saying that if things don't change, he sees doom ahead, and that this fight against corruption cannot be won if things are going this way. If he is going to keep losing cases like this, he expresses some dissatisfaction with the way the judiciary is treating him and so on after the cases that he lost continuously in court a few weeks ago as well. Take that into consideration and the speaker's comments. Would you say that the speaker has some level of grounds in also making reference to the fact that just maybe if we had taken the route of having a minister of justice who is a politician but an attorney general who is independent and not appointed, we would have probably achieved the same results?
Alfred, good morning once again, and greetings to my very noble seniors at the bar and Honorable Apak in the studio. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Yes, I want to think that the OSP's, for lack of a better word, lamentations was in relation to what he deemed or seen to be non-cooperation from the judiciary in respect of him discharging his statutory obligations. I do not think that he was necessarily saying that he was getting interference from the executive per se. You would recall that in Mr. Martin Amidu's time, his lamentations were because, in his opinion, he was not getting cooperation from the executive, or the executive were trying to influence the discharge of his statutory obligations. But from what I heard Mr. Kissie Jabin say during that presser, I think he was focusing more on the fact that he wasn't getting the necessary cooperation from the judiciary. And so his prediction that if the trends proceed this way, there will be doom, I think that it was more towards, or only towards, the reaction of the judiciary as he saw it towards the discharge of his obligation, and not because he thought that there was executive influence in his the discharge of his obligation. That is my appreciation of it. Now, come to the basis of this lamentation, the perceived non-cooperation with the judiciary. I think, or I was hoping, that after the passage of the OSP Act, there would be a conscious attempt by either the Attorney General's office or even the OSP's office itself to have some form of sensitization, or I don't want to use the word training, but some sort of orientation with the judges. And it's not uncommon, because in our jurisprudence, whenever there's a new law that is passed, or even an amendment of an existing law, you see that the statutory authority that is in charge of implementing that law sometimes organizes meetings with judges to explain the rationale behind the law and the basis, the operational practicalities of implementation of that law. And so, for example, the GRA, I know sometimes they have those seminars. Sometimes they are held by foreign donor agencies, but I have not seen that happen yet with the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. Perhaps that may create the lacuna where the special prosecutor, because let's be minded that the provisions in the Special Prosecutors Act are not like any other existing act that we have that seeks to fight crime or corruption per se. And so maybe it is about time the Office of the Special Prosecutor engages the judiciary to have I think they have the Judicial Training Institute that organizes these trainings for judges when it comes to new laws, so that the judges would appreciate exactly what the intendment or the intention of the framers of that law was, so that there will be, for lack of a better word, ease of appreciation and application of that law. So I hope that the OSP takes that approach, and then it will bridge the gap that he sees exist between his office and the judiciary, and it will not be out of place. It is something that is normally done when a new law is passed. Now, secondly, to what I think of the comments by the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, I agree with Senior Martin Kpebu that I think that it is not true that the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is a waste of resources. I mean, yes, we have all clamored that we have to get to a time where the Office of the Attorney General would be separated from the Minister of Justice for good reason. Now, the good reason essentially being that we want somebody devoid of political influence who would be able to pursue politically exposed persons and political appointees when they engage in corrupt practices or criminal offenses related to such practices. As it stands now, Article 88 has not been amended, and Parliament has gone through the process of enacting the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And so if the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been created by law, I believe that all the institutions must provide that office the necessary cooperation. Remember, we say that we need to create strong institutions and not strong personalities. And so whatever the other arms of government must do, the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, to ensure that this office is created for the purposes for which the law says it should be created, I think that it behoves on all of us to do it. If the OSP office fails, it is not an indictment on only the person who is in charge. It is an indictment on us as a country. Remember, with the corruption index worldwide, the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor gave Ghana a certain leverage. That is a very important step that the country has decided to take in its attempt to fight corruption. And so if we sit there and let that office fail, then it will come back to bite all of us, give us that international image that we do not want. So I do not agree that the office of the OSP was a needless creation, but I think that all the arms of government must give that office the necessary cooperation. That does not mean that if the office takes a step that contradicts the law or its enabling act, we should all sit down and watch it. But as much as possible, the cooperation that is needed to ensure that that office, not the person, that office, not the person succeeds, I believe that we should do that. When you listen to Dr. Apak, you would see the political connotations to some of the reasons that have been laid as being the reason why some agree with the creation of the Office of Special Prosecution and some do not. And that is where I think sometimes affects the way that we see the work of the office. Because if we attach politics to everything, which unfortunately we seem to be doing in many aspects of our national discourse, then we are not able to bring to bear the real reasons why things ought to be the way they are. Because we are always thinking, okay, is it for political purposes? Is it for witch hunting? If that continues, it will be very difficult. And you would see that with this special prosecutor, at least whether we are happy with the outcome of the investigations or not, he seems to have gone after people that have been appointed by this arm of government. And so, yes, we may question the outcome of the investigation, but the fact that he's been bold enough to go after persons that have been appointed by this government for perceived acts of corruption or related offenses, I think that it deserves some form of credit. It may not be full, but some form of credit, because you may have people that will not be bold enough to go after this. And so in all, I think that office, again, I keep emphasizing, it is not about the person leading it. It is about the office.
But
that office should be given the necessary support so that it will not fail. And I believe that if we have a very strong and effective institution like the Office of the Special Prosecutor, in the long term, Ghana as a country will benefit.
But if you say that you expect the necessary support and cooperation to be given to the office, you take into consideration the fact that the OSP's latest public outcry, or the frustrations and all the lamentations he came out with, was on the back of losing a number of cases continuously in court. And then he says that if things continue this way, he sees doom ahead. How do you expect some people sitting at the back to think?
As lawyers, you do not always win. And mind you, the cases that has been said that he lost were lost at first instance. Our constitution gives us rights to appeal right up to the Supreme Court. And so the fact that the OSP has lost a case but in the High Court does not mean that he doesn't have a right of appeal. I believe that if he believes strongly that what he was doing was right, and the court at first instance, which is the High Court, misinterpreted or misapplied the law, he has a right to appeal to the Court of Appeal and a subsequent right to appeal to the Supreme Court. And that is why that I do not think that coming out the way he did was the best in that instance, because you've not exhausted the entire legal process. If he had exhausted the entire legal process, then maybe he would have said, okay, I did my best, but the judiciary seemed to disagree. But you are only, concluding that the judiciary is against you because you lost at the High Court. And so, like lawyers do, when you lose at first instance, you have a right to appeal. And the fact that you lost at first instance does not mean necessarily that there is a disposition or a policy by the judiciary to frustrate your work. And I think that the way and manner in which he presented his public outcry, for us is being described now, or lamentations, would give the ordinary person that view that the OSP's office has concluded that the judiciary is set against him. But there are some cases that he's still handling in the judiciary that he has not lost, or that there has not been for lack of a better word, frustration. And so if you balance the two acts, that is why I said that if he is of the opinion, that is the OSP's office is of the opinion that the judiciary does not appreciate the provisions of the OSP Act, nothing stops him from engaging, maybe through the Attorney General, the Judicial Training Institute, or the Chief Justice, to organize that orientation. And it is not uncommon. I've seen it done or read about it done with new laws that are passed, so that the judges will come up to speed. Perhaps he may be able to lay before them comparative analysis from other countries, because you see, this is the first experience we are having with the Act. And so if there are comparative analysis from other countries, how similar provisions have been interpreted and applied, and there's judicial training, for lack of a better word, on it, maybe it will help this cause.
I see. And I'm running up on this matter. Dr. Clement Park,
yes.
really?
I was just going to make a quick
one.
You notice that when Martin Amidu was the special prosecutor, most of his complaints, publicly, and even through some of his right stands, were that he was not getting cooperation from the executive, and that there were deliberate efforts to frustrate him as far as his work is concerned. Now, for the current special prosecutor, his challenge, as he indicated publicly, has to do not with the executive, but the judiciary. So either way, it tells me that there is still something that has not been done. And maybe that is where I may agree with Bobby, and then even lawyer Martin Kpebu, that perhaps what the office needs is unalloyed public support to rally around the office, to give the office the needed boost to make it capable of withstanding any pressures or influences or obstacles that may come from any arm of government to seek to frustrate the work. But maybe in the future that may require some other laws to be made or some adjustments to be made. And hopefully, when we finally get the opportunity to review the Constitution, these are some of the matters that we ought to look at. But all in all, the office has served some purpose, at least if for nothing at all. It has been able to bring exposure and at least has been able to wheel in certain entities and personalities who the traditional setup clearly could not have even dreamt of taking on. So that in itself, I think, is a credit that we have to concede.
I see. So, Kpebu, 1 minute. So this is an office that you expect that a subsequent government would maintain. For instance, if it's just but for the benefit of analysis, if the NDC comes, you expect that OSP, that office will be maintained?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt at all about it. We have to maintain it because you see what Bobby said. And let me quickly, even before I continue. Bobby, I side with you about the comparative analysis. Yeah, because this law, when you talk to people in the OSP, they keep making the point that their law is unique. It's unique. So where we copied it from, they should bring the jurisprudence, how the courts have dealt with the provisions. You see, Honorable Yunus Afseni said they went to Malaysia, others went to different countries. So bring the court decisions from those countries. We need to gather. Yeah, I had made that same point, Bobby, to some of the people I had spoken to in the past. So I'm happy you also agree. Because we are learning. You see, you went and copied something from somebody's country. Why don't you bring along the court decisions
in that country?
Yes, so that we compare. Because if you don't, and you just say, here we are limited. We don't have enough resources in terms of seeing how you can access cases from those countries. The books are expensive, etc. So bring them at least at the cost of the state. Then let's also learn. Then that way it makes it easier. So as for keeping the office, it should go on. As I said, this is not the first. We are just continuing our history. Lawyer PS prosecutor office had always been there. So we just went back to it. And so we are not about to scrape it. Of course, but let's mention in passing that lawyer, Crunchy Daily Searchlight, he has filed the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality
of the office.
Okay. So we'll see what the Supreme
We'll see how this case plays out. But that leads us into our next issue, because it's still having to do with the issue. Yes.
Sorry,
Apiakobi.
Yes, thank you. To summarize, I think that Ghana, we think that we need an independent prosecutor. From the conversation.
So Director of Public Prosecutor must be independent.
Must be an independent prosecutor. How to do it is the problem.
Right.
And you see, the Constitution has entrenched provisions, and this one comes under the entrenched provisions. So we cannot do it by just an act of Parliament. So it means that when we are ready to amend our Constitution, this is also one of the things we have to do to try to make sure that we separate the two offices. Again, the logistical support that Mr. Amidu cried for, the judicial frustration, so in quotes, that current OSP is crying for, the public support that my good friend is advocating for, they are all not capable of amending the law.
I see.
You need to go through the Constitution and constitutional processes to amend the law to provide us with the independence that we require. And when that is done, then the courts will respond. In fact, if we blame the courts, we may not have done a good job because the courts will interpret what the law is. And on a particular occasion, when I followed the prosecution in court, I realized that the prosecutor himself did not avert his mind to the laws upon which he was prosecuting. And then it was easy for the court to dismiss the matter because he was not responsive to his law. Again, when we were enacting the OSP Act, I personally, on one occasion, told the House that I'm not sure that we are referring to experiences in the courtrooms. And therefore, we are crafting the law as literature people. just bringing out English language, which would not have effect in the courtroom. And I remember somebody telling me, Andy, sit down, let's go on. And you see, but when operational people are talking, we have to listen. True. Because you create a situation, a law, when you create a law with the intent that is wrong, it may end up harassing and intimidating you, yourself, the creator of the law.
I see.
So you create the law for the common good of the people, not for individuals or sections of the people. Then it comes to haunt you.
So the intention of the OSP indeed is also one thing we have to look at.
We were not too careful in creating that law. And we were not also mindful of the constitutional limitations
in creating that
law. And we were not also mindful of the inconsistencies and the possible conflict between the offices.
Interesting point.